Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're just going to give it a few more minutes. I think we'll start maybe 3 past the hour. Hi to new joiners. We're just giving it another couple of minutes as people start joining the chat. Great to see you all. As a little bit of an icebreaker, I'll mention it again in a couple of minutes, but we'd love to hear where you're dialing in from. So if you could drop in the chat where you are from and where you are coming from today. We have lovely and warm California. That sounds great.
Oh, we got Heim. Nice.
Kansas City. Oh, Italy. Very nice. Lovely and warm.
Rajiv.
India. Fantastic. Quite late. Late for you guys. Cool. I'll give it one more minute and we'll just let a few more people roll in and then we will kick off.
Oh, Adine. Hi there. My old friend. My old craft buddy.
Cool. We've had a few more people join the chat. So we're just asking everyone where they're from. If you haven't responded already, we'd love to hear where you are dialing in from today. And we'll start in a minute or so. I'll hand over to Maddie to say hello. Brazil. Awesome.
Rodolfo, I remember you.
Cool. Okay, so I think we will kick off. So thank you for joining tonight's webinar, wherever you are in the world. It's great to see you all. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can rev up your digital product delivery with value stream mapping and the lovely presentation from Maddie. I will pass over to her to introduce herself and walk through the content. Just a bit of housekeeping. We'd love to keep this as interactive as possible. So if there are any questions at any time, please drop them in the chat in real time, and we'd love to try and address them in the context of the discussion. And also we'll make some time at the end for some more general questions if you have any. It will be great to hear from you. So I will pass over to you, Maddie, without further ado.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to share this with you today. Thank you for joining. We have representation from across the globe here, so I'm very impressed. How many people do we have on the call? Jenny?
Up to about 20 people on the call right now.
Oh, great. Perfect. So again, if you have questions as we go along, just put them in the chat. If I see them, I'll respond. Otherwise, Jenny will interrupt. So what we're going to talk about today is digital product delivery and how you can map out a value stream to improve your process. So I'm talking today about digital products as opposed to physical products. So what I mean by a digital product is mostly anything that's software developed that you're offering as a product to either commercial, external customers to your organization, or even internal software that you're offering to internal customers like users, business stakeholders, et cetera. So when I say like a commercial product, I'm talking about, for example, Craft. Craft is a commercial product, right? You can buy it. It's software that you use for product management, and it's a product. You buy it. When we talk about a digital product internally, we're probably talking more, some examples would be like an e-commerce platform, customer service solutions, sales solutions, again, that systems or products that are used inside your organization. So that's the focus for today. And just by way of introduction, I think I know a couple of you folks on the phone, and thank you for joining, my friends. If I don't know you or you don't know me, again, my name is Maddie, Madeline, whatever. I'm an independent product consultant. Most recently, I worked with Kimberly Clark, and I'm no longer with Kimberly Clark. I've also worked with other companies like McKesson, Anthem, IBM, Equifax, other companies in the startup spaces, mid-sized companies. I've had a long career in product and software development. So let's get started. So let's start with what's the problem we're trying to solve here with value stream mapping. So let's see if any of these resonate with you. If you're a product manager or a leader, or you're on a product team, you may think that, geez, my process seems inefficient, and it's complicated. And when I get involved in these types of situations, either as a coach or a consultant, or even as a product team member, I've seen this happen again and again. Is the processes are complicated. A lot of times they're inefficient, but you don't necessarily know why, right? You suspect there's problems there, but I don't know what they are. Okay, well, this is value stream mapping is a tool that can help you with that. You may suspect that you need something to change, but again, you don't know what. Sometimes you might see that there's kind of a silo mentality between your IT product delivery development group and your product management group. So value stream mapping would be a way, and we'll talk about how you can use it to kind of bridge that gap. And another one that we don't think about a lot when we're doing when we think about why we need to use value stream mapping, but a lot of times you might find that your products have quality issues that don't enable you to deliver quickly. And what I mean by that is possibly you can't get the software out because you continue to find problems before you even get it out there in a release, or you get the functionality out there in a release and you start getting feedback that it doesn't work right. So value stream mapping is also a tool that can help you with that. Again, value stream mapping is a tool that it's just a tool like any other tool in your toolbox. And I use it very frequently as a starter when I'm coaching a product team to find out what is the problem we're trying to solve here, instead of just diving in and solving something, right? So let's put it in the context of the whole process. All right, so when we do value stream mapping, when we use this tool, it's really a tool that's going to help you understand your process by which you deliver value to your customers. And again, these can be external customers, like if you're a craft customer like I am, that could be your context, or it could be internal customers. And I have an example that I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes. That's an internal example because I think it can hit home for the folks that I see on the call and just in general. The idea here is to understand how long it takes to deliver the value. So your cycle time is important here, and we'll talk about what that means. It's also handy for you to identify handoffs in your process that might cause delays. So if you're handing off, a lot of times within your context, you may have multiple teams or organizations that are supposed to collaborate to deliver value. And sometimes you may find that one team is handing off to another team the work, and so that can cause delays. That's something to look at. It can also create bottlenecks, or you may have bottlenecks in your organization, and value stream mapping can help you unearth those. The idea, again, I'm going to continue to harp on this because it's really important that we understand the whole process of delivering value. Because if you focus on just one, minuscule piece or one smaller piece, you might be solving the wrong problem to really improve your overall value stream. So we want to see the whole process at a high level. And also, again, you can use this to foster collaboration between the business, between product management and IT. And I'll show you an example of how you can do that. When I talk about the value stream or the value delivery stream, this is what I mean at a very high level. These are the processes that, from a product management perspective, you're exploring ideas, you're defining your customer needs, right? You're inspecting your industry, your market. You're trying to figure out what it is that would deliver value. Those ideas and capabilities will flow to your delivery teams. So the people that build and release your product capabilities and your features, usually it's like an IT group or you might call them product development, right? A lot of times they're working in agile ways of working. And then ultimately the value is delivered to your customers in the forms of releases, right? Either big releases, point releases, small releases, fixed releases, however it is that you're delivering, the mechanism that you use to deliver value. So that's a value stream at the highest level. It's too high for us to do anything with, right? So we need to kind of break that down into how it works today in your organization. Questions as we go along. I haven't seen any yet. So let's keep going. The goal here is to have a continuous flow of delivery where you don't bottleneck, right? Or you don't cause delays. And you see these two ladies here. Do any of you remember or watch I Love Lucy reruns? Yeah, this was a good one. You can still get them on I think on YouTube, right? Where they're working at they're working on a production line, on a candy production line, and the line just keeps speeding up, right? And so to keep the flow going, they start to eat the candy. So it's really pretty funny if you have any spare time to look at it. But it's a good example of, how you can it's a simple example of how you find a bottleneck in your process. But what we're going for here is continuous flow of value and quick flow of value. So understand that in some context, in some business context, you have big monolithic systems. So this is a hard concept to implement. But the idea is to, in that case, to deliver at least a little more continuously and a little more faster. So we want to find what improvements we can make in the process. Let's identify what our problems are. Let's look at the whole process and let's figure out where we have delays, handoffs, bottlenecks. Another aspect is to, as you do this type of work, you want to consider the types of measurements that you want to use, the type of metrics that you want to use to make sure that you're making progress, right? So it's great to make progress and to have that kind of intrinsic knowledge that things are working better, right? It feels better. But what can you use to prove that you're making progress? So you'll want to think through your measurements. Some examples here might be feature cycle time, how long it takes to get a feature from inception to in production. You could use things like customer satisfaction, employee engagement, all different metrics to understand if you're making progress and you're improving your processes. And then as important is making sure that your customer and your stakeholder feedback processes are fully incorporated into your process. So again, it's that full loop of product management, product delivery, customer, and then continuous delivery. Some good examples of not customers, but of companies that do this well. These might be a little overused, but just to illustrate, Facebook is a really good example for those of you who use Facebook. They have a continuous deployment model where they can very easily push code multiple times a day. So they can deliver features multiple times per day. That's really on the high end of continuous deployment. Another example is Etsy. If you guys use Etsy, that's a very cool kind of global tool. My son actually works for Etsy, and he's an engineer, and they focus on quick delivery of features. They can deploy code many times a day. They measure everything. So when he puts out a feature, they are able to generate revenue that's generated because of that feature. And oh, by the way, they tie his performance bonuses into that revenue. So they have a very, very sophisticated model for value delivery. Those are external facing type products. I'm going to talk more about, I'm going to give you an example now of an internal product. And we're going to walk through a simple value stream or a simplified value stream for this product. So I'm hoping that by walking through this, you can see how you might use this in your context and make this a tool that you can incorporate in your toolbox. So this product is real product. It comes from a team that I worked with in my past, a couple years ago. It is an internal sales operations type product and solution. So it's a very large and complex product. It's not like an e-commerce product like in Etsy or, even like a Facebook, right? This is a very complicated product that has many ties to other systems and external ties. So for example, they can take in external RFPs. They have a quoting machine in there. They have interfaces to underwriting and other quoting systems. They generate proposals. They're able to measure or manage opportunities as they walk through the pipeline. There's functionality for brokers. So it's a very complicated system. So what I tried to do is boil down the value stream to make it simpler so we can understand. Okay. So it's big. There's a lot of boxes, a lot of material on here. So let's walk through this. To make it simple, I broke it down into 3 pieces. And it sort of kind of jives with that 3 simplified product value stream diagram that I showed you earlier. So the top part here is the continuous backlog refinement. So this is where we're understanding what it is we want to deliver, because really it doesn't matter how fast we deliver, how efficient we are if we're not delivering the right things. Right? So this is where we figure out the right things to deliver and we build our backlog. This is where the feature development happens. So this is where the transition to your IT, to your technical teams, if they're agile teams or whatever type of teams they are, that's where that work is getting done. And on the deployment piece is the second page here. So we'll see if we have time. We should have time to walk through it all. This is where we actually deploy the solution in production or out in the field. So again, I tried to simplify it. It was a lot more complicated than this, but I wanted to just give you a good illustration so you can see how it works. Again, so hopefully you can use this in your own context. Before I get started, any questions or comments? I'm just going to take a quick little break here for a minute. Is anyone still awake? Might be late in India. Okay. So we're going to start here. So the example I'm giving you is an already available product, and we are continuing to enhance it based upon maybe new products we're offering, new solutions or new processes that we're enabling. But if not, you may enter this value stream with a new product, and that probably would have come from a portfolio management type of a process or however you use to get new products into your pipeline. But to make it simple, we're focusing on a value stream for an already available product. Again, it's an internal product. So the first thing that happens, and this is happening continuously, it's a continuous loop, right? The product manager is drafting the business features. How do they know what business features? And so this is the part of the process I don't have in here, but they're continuously reviewing customer feedback because they're using like the craft demand portal or something that allows them to capture real-time customer feedback on their product. Most of the product managers that work on this solution have deep industry knowledge. And so they know the types of solutions that are needed for salespeople, or they may have been salespeople in this industry or in this company. And then another way they are probably understanding what ideas to have for the product is they're reviewing competitive type solutions. Another input funnel could be like internal stakeholders. A lot of times the executive leaders will give you, here's a feature you need to have, right? So many different ways where they're figuring out what to deliver. But what we need them to do is write business features, and that's what they're doing. They're writing business features. At the same time, the system architect is also involved in this intake funnel, and they're writing technical enabler features, easy for me to say. So features that are technical in nature, typically the architectural type features or infrastructure. I need to build an infrastructure component, right? So we need to consider this work as well because it's important to be able to deliver business features. Product managers meet periodically and they are prioritizing their features. and they're using the weighted shortest job first technique. And that's a technique that's widely used in SAFe. People that have implemented SAFe, or it's even available in Craft. So it's just a priority scheme. Anytime we see the red star or the triangle, we've noted when we did this work, we noted an area that we needed to improve. So we'll come back to what the improvements are and the problems that we see. We're just trying to lay out what the steps are. At this point, the product manager transitions their highest priority features to the product owners, business analysts, and tech leads. So here we're starting to see that collaboration between product and the delivery teams, the agile teams. The technical folks, the product owners, business analysts, and tech leads are going to start to estimate these features. Why is that important? Remember the idea is to deliver the most value quickest. So we want to know what value the business feature delivers. So it needs to be written well in the feature. And then about how long do we think it's going to take? Because we want to go for those quick wins first. Based upon the estimates, the product managers then go refine their prioritization, if they want, with the estimate information. Okay, then the agile teams are going to pull those features into their backlog. But what they need to do is they need to consider what capacity do they have and how big are the features. And they need to do it in priority sequence. That's what they're doing today. The teams are going to review those features to gain an understanding of what they are, because the feature says the what, the team is going to decide how to deliver it, how to develop and test that feature. So the team needs to understand it. If that feature isn't ready, if they don't understand it, it may have to go back to product management. Guess what? That's a delay, right? If you have to go rework it, it's a delay. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because you want to make sure everybody understands the feature. But this is important, being able to write clear, concise features that offer business benefit. Okay, so if the features are understood, the business analyst is going to start writing the use case scenarios, so happy path, not so happy path, all different types of scenarios for that feature. And the product owner is going to start breaking that feature into high-level user stories. That's how the process works today. It's very collaborative between the VA and the product owner. The PO is also going to detail out the story. It's going to take those high-level stories and start working down the detail in terms of requirements. So maybe wireframes, the UI design. The BA is going to write the detail requirements, and they do that today, such as field mapping and validations. And again, we're starting to see more problems here. Right? We'll talk about what those are in a moment. This is not a step that they were doing, but we added it. And, as you can see, we called it an improvement. The idea here is for the product owner to facilitate a design review meeting. So before we put that feature into development, we want to take a check. We want to check with some major stakeholders, maybe some actual users and customers. Is this going to deliver? Do you think this is going to deliver the value that we're expecting? So it's a check. It's a good check. How many of you experienced delivering features that don't get used? This is hopefully one stopgap that we used here to ensure that at least we think it's going to deliver value, because we checked. Chaim, do you have a question? Or are you just agreeing? Okay. All right, so we think that feature is going to deliver value, or those features. Now the teams are actually going to start working on these features. So the teams that we were working with here are their agile teams, and they're working Scrum, and they're working in 2-week sprints. So they plan the sprint, they have the feature or features. They pull in the user stories for the features that they're developing and testing. And they go through the whole process. As they're finishing stories, the product owner is going to review them for completeness and accept them if they meet definition of done. The product owners or the BAs are going to write UAT, user acceptance testing documentation. And at the end of the sprint, There's going to be a team review. And this is a really good opportunity to demo work in progress, right? So the feature as it's getting delivered, you may want to invite some key stakeholders, maybe some actual customers, again, to make sure you're on track here. And we continue the process until the feature is complete. And when we finished a feature, and again, this was not something that we were doing, so I added this box, we'll do a complete feature demo. So we want to demo the entire workflow on that feature from start to finish. And this is before you've even gotten into user acceptance testing. So trying to find the problem sooner, trying to understand the value it delivers up front, as opposed to later on in the process when it's more expensive to fix. So that's the first part of the process. Note down here, average time for a feature to get through this is about 10 to 12 weeks. That's a long time. Yep, that's a long time. And we haven't even talked about deployment yet. Because when we talk about deployment, we're going to add at least another 4 weeks onto that. So do we think there's a problem? do we think that there's a case for change here? Yes, we did. And just in this alone, any place where this was starred, we noted that there's an associated improvement for it. So talk about a few of them. One here, this one right here. This is a common one that I see, where the system architect is not necessarily drafting technical enabler stories all the time. So what happens? Why is that a problem? Problem comes when you're trying to deliver the feature down here and you realize, oops, I need a specific solution to enable this feature, and I don't have it, so now I got to go find it and deliver it, right? So I maybe needed some middleware or some component that I don't have. What did that do to your business feature? Much longer, right? So you want to identify those things up front. Another thing that we thought would help is doing some exploration type stories. So if we have a feature that we're not quite sure on how to deliver, let's do an exploration feature before we even write the business feature, or at the same time we're doing it, so that we understand more about how we're going to deliver it. So that was one key process change that was made. I talked about this one here about reviewing, reviewing, where am I? Sorry. This one here, making sure that we loop in other people in the process, or that aren't in the process that might consume our product, to see if we're on point or on track with this feature. Will it deliver value? Do we think it'll deliver value? At least the way we've described it in the business feature. So that was another thing, is looping in some business reviews and approvals. A third thing that we found, estimating. This is always an interesting thing here. We found that the estimating that we did when we finally got the features into development down here, they were taking a lot longer. What's the problem there? The problem there is we may have set the expectations with our users and our customers how long it would take, and we may have put it on a roadmap, but our estimates were not robust enough. So we needed to make sure that we included everything in our estimates, including how long it takes to UAT, how long it takes to deploy, all of that. Fully load your estimates. And then the last one that I wanted to just talk about, again, and I come back to this one here, because not only did I see this in this particular value stream here, but most currently when I was working at Kimberly-Clark, in one of the teams that I was working with, this was very key, is to make sure before we put the feature into development that we review that with the right stakeholders and customers and users to make sure we're on track, so that we all have the same understanding of what this is. We want to fix that expectation up front before we start coding, if possible. And sometimes it actually takes a demo to get to that. And that's okay too. It's just, we wanted to put this check in here. Again, it's a 10 to 12 week cycle time. to get through this, or that's what it was. Any questions before I move on? Just check the chat here. Okay. All right, so we're at 10 to 12 weeks, and let's follow this through onto the deployment piece. So this is where we found lots of opportunity. First thing is that the code cutoff was 3 weeks before the release date. So we were doing quarterly releases here, only quarterly. This is, again, a big monolithic system, so very hard to make small changes and not impact a whole large code base. So this is what worked for them, was quarterly releases. Code cutoff 3 weeks before the release date. Whoa, that's a big delay. And I don't know why. We'd have to investigate that. So that goes on our list. First thing they would do is replicate their user stories in Jira. So if you had a development user story, we'd replicate one for UAT testing. Doesn't seem logical, right? But that's what they were doing. Then DevOps would move the code, associated code, into UAT. The readiness team would compile the UAT documentation, and then as soon as the code's in UAT, the teams are going to smoke test in UAT. This here's taken 3 days, 3 solid days delay. Then, once you get a good code base, the business SMEs would test the stories in UAT. This process here is about a 2-week process. We run daily triage calls to work on bugs. And at the same time we're doing UAT, we're going to do end-to-end testing. Just like I said, this is a large code base with lots of interfaces. So we have to carefully do this end-to-end testing. Then after that 2 weeks or whenever we're done testing and fixing, we're going to do a technical go, no-go. Do we think this is good to go? Yes or no? You may have to go back to testing. Hopefully not. The happy path. Then we're going to get into a go, no-go meeting with a larger group to involve product, technical, and business. We make our decision to go. DevOps migrates the code to production. This is just a typical deployment scenario. What we would do on Saturdays before the release is shut down the system, so it can't be used on that weekend, and then move the code base in, and then we start the checkout testing. If everything checks out, then on Monday morning, the users and customers are back online with the new functionality. So when we walked through this process, we found it's about 5.5 weeks, assuming you don't have any major glitches, which is not always the case. It's Murphy's Law. So we found several interesting areas of improvement here that we put on our list. Why are we replicating stories here? Why is code cut off 3 weeks? We need to investigate here. Oh, this one here. This is one of my favorite ones. This is the first time that we're seeing the code integrated in a test environment. We have multiple teams. We had probably about 10 teams working in this code base. Oh, this is the first time you're integrating it. Guess where you're going to find the problems? Right here, right when you start doing your smoke testing and your user acceptance testing. So we need a solution for here. I forget what the problem was here, but there was a problem here. This here has taken 3 days, takes too long. We probably need to automate this. And there was a problem in UAT. We didn't have really good workflow process documentation for users to test. So again, 5.5 weeks, including the code freeze, assuming everything works well. Altogether, we're looking at what, 16 to 18 weeks? You think that is a problem in there? Next step. So what we did is we take all the improvements or the problems to solve, and we put them in a backlog. We're not going to solution them yet. We're going to put them in a backlog, and we're going to prioritize them. And we're going to decide which ones, just like features, just like working your feature backlog, we're going to work our improvement backlog. So that's how it goes. That's value stream mapping in a nutshell. Again, I tried to make it a simplified example, and I'm hoping you can see how it would work inside your context. Let me just take a pause here for a moment and see if there's any questions or comments from you guys. Don't be shy.
So we do have a question from the panel. So first one is, how do we mobilize an organization to invest in value stream mapping in the first place? What's the process there?
Ooh, that's a good one. And I'm going to say this is like, it depends. It depends on the type of environment you're working in. But I always like to say is make a business case. So if you already have if you're a product manager and you have a good working relationship with your product development team, right? You can do this mapping at a high level without having any type of obstacle in your way, right? Based upon that, you can make a business case. Like if I were to use this example here, I would say, well, we could probably cut this value stream down by 4 weeks, right? What does that, so that's a metric you can use is your feature cycle time. What does that mean to the business? Does that mean you're going to improve customer satisfaction? Does that mean you're going to improve employee engagement? Like what can you tie this to? Are you going to improve product quality? And so if you need to mobilize, that is a really good way to do it. Take a look at the current process as much as you can, and you want to avoid that blame game, right? So you want to make sure it's a collaborative effort. Sometimes it doesn't work that way because you don't have that kind of relationship. So sometimes you need, more of an executive sponsorship on this, or at least I'd say director level sponsorship on this type of an approach. Yes, and I wanted to mention that, Chaim. So you can use, if I back up to this part of the value stream, and I meant to mention, as you're working through these steps here, and I found this very useful to use craft. So we can use craft for our feature backlog, for our product backlog, right? We can do our prioritization techniques. We could also use craft for our improvement backlog. So great way to make things visible. Great question. Other questions or comments on what I've reviewed on the value stream?
So an additional question, just looking in the chat. We've got something around, you mentioned it before, but how can we get leadership on board with this approach and sponsoring it?
Yeah, and again, I'd say it comes down to a business case, right? Like what floats their boat? Like what is on their minds? Is customer satisfaction on their minds? Is product quality on their minds? It's hard. It's hard not to make a case, right? If you have an inefficient value delivery process, you can almost always tie that to customer satisfaction. Right? So are you measuring customer satisfaction is the first question. Like, is there any visibility? Are you measuring product quality? Is there any visibility into that? So one of the most recent ones that I worked on in my last company that I worked with was around getting features through development that were accepted by the customers. So getting all the way through offering the feature and it's not what they wanted. So not that that's an easy fix. It was an easy problem to find. Once you found the problem, that's half the thing right there is understanding what it is that's going wrong. And that's why value stream mapping is so effective. Great questions. Whoops. Trying to go over to the chat here. Other questions?
And there is another question that I can see around who is responsible for leading a value stream mapping workshop.
So that also depends. Depends on your context. I like to see about this type of an approach sponsored by leadership, to be honest with you, because who owns the process? Does IT own it? Does product own it? Like, no, it's like a collaboration. So I feel like you need to move up the food chain there and get leadership at an executive level to collaborate and sponsor it. And again, if you make the right business case, it should be easier. But who actually facilitates it is I would suggest you find a coach or somebody who understands how to use this technique and this tool that's not invested in it. In other words, somebody who can kind of ask the right questions without, hopefully without, you don't want to get into the whole blame game, right? So you kind of have the people who are involved in this, right, have to have that right mindset, that growth mindset, if you will. It's like, it's not about pointing out faults and pointing fingers. It's about how do we make this better? Okay, I'm going to continue on unless we have other questions. I just have a few more things to cover and a few more minutes. Okay, so some pitfalls to avoid. Obviously, if you have limited cross-functional collaboration, this is going to be difficult because you need the people who are responsible for those operational steps in the value stream to be part of this effort so that you understand what it is they're doing, right? Like, how would you even know what that deployment pipeline looks like unless you had somebody from DevOps in the meeting? If you don't have your leadership bought in, it's going to be really hard to make change in the organization. And if you're not tying it to some type of organizational goal as well. It's always a good idea to explain why you're doing it, especially to stakeholders, because, like a lot of stakeholders don't like change, or maybe they want change. Maybe it's on the other end of the spectrum, but explain what you're doing and why and what the business benefit is. It's all well and good to have an improvement plan and you have specific items in a backlog, right? But if you don't have change management, and that's back up to leadership, if you don't have change management strategy and follow up with it, it probably won't work. So you need some communications. You need your leaders to help communicating what the expectations are, what the changes are, what the expectations are, and make sure that they're helping you with that. Obviously, too much change all at once. Rome wasn't built in a day, and like you're not going to want to do all these improvements at once. Probably won't work very well. And then thinking you are done. Are you ever done improving? Probably not. You can probably always find something. Or if you think you're done enough, move on to another product. I don't know. One really good thing to do is to, once you've laid out your value stream and identified your problems, is run a problem solving workshop. And I love these because you can really get people creating. People love to solve problems, don't they? I do. You can get all of this on a whiteboard. You can use Miro. That's the tool that I typically use. And you can get people to really start thinking through and brainstorming ideas for how to solve. And then prioritizing them. Make sure it's always good to make sure we're focusing on the major steps in the delivery pipeline. Don't get down to the nth level detail. If you need to go down to more details, spot that as an improvement and prioritize it. You don't want to spend weeks on the value stream mapping. You want that to go pretty quickly, maybe a session or two. Plan and prioritize your improvements. So I always use this in any training or webinars that I do is that plan, do, check, adjust. Continuous improvement, that's the lean part of it, right? So we're going to plan our improvements, we're going to do them iteratively, we're going to check them, and then we're going to adjust and act accordingly and just continue on. Involve leadership, and can't say too much about this to get your leadership involved and make sure that they know that they own the process. At the highest level, they own the processes. Change management, super, super important. And then I know I didn't spend a lot of time on measuring and reporting on successes, but it's really important. More than just, improving on your feature cycle time, but what does that mean for the business? Always ask why. Why is that important for the business? And that is about everything that I had to share today. I hope this was useful technique for you. And let me know if I can be of any assistance to you. I can put my email out on the chat here. And if you'd like to follow up, if there are any other questions, now would be a good time to ask.
We do have one more question. Kind of also one that I'm definitely interested in. What is the best way to address resistance from teams that feel the process is good enough as it currently is? How do you that kind of
Wow, good
pushback.
question.
Yeah.
So, um, okay, I can understand that. I can understand that viewpoint. Like, I don't really like a lot of criticism either. So, why don't we just walk through what the process is and how long things take? That's the beauty about this tool is it hopefully can take the resistance out just by kind of putting it out there. And again, you may need some sponsorship. If you can't get teams to engage with you, you may need sponsorship at a leadership level. I hit that as a coach, I hit that resistance more often than not. So I have to develop relationships and trust. And it's kind of all about the trust. Nobody's going to get shot or fired over this. You probably will get shot and fired if you don't improve. If you don't have that kind of a mindset, you might not be as useful to the organization as you could be. But sometimes it just takes some time to gain that trust.
Awesome.
Good question.
Cool. So I think we are approaching time. If there's any more questions, please feel free to put in the chat. But just want to thank you, Maddie, for presenting today. Really insightful. Of course, we understand, that the core aim of product teams is to deliver value, but you always find yourselves at times looking so detailed into the features that you're delivering. You don't necessarily look holistically at the value across the board. So, yeah, really insightful topic. Thank you for sharing this and providing a tool that helps to push those teams towards delivery in a really holistic way.
I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Haim, and everybody. To me, like this is my go-to tool in the toolbox because I don't know how to help as a coach or as a consultant. I don't know how to help you unless we understand where your major problems are and how would you know that, right? Maybe you do, like maybe you've already done it, but again, a very useful tool it has been for me in my career. So thank you for the opportunity and thank you everybody for joining. Good to see you too.
Thanks for joining, everyone. And if you'd also like to hear a little bit more about Craft.io, we'd also love to hear from you. And Maddie's put her email there as well if you would like to get in touch. And of course, feel free to engage with us on LinkedIn. We'll also be posting the recording of the webinar in due course. So thank you for joining and have a lovely rest of the day.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.